Okie doke. We just got done creating all the sheets, and what we need to work on now is we're gonna go through and place a lot more information on a lot of sheets, and it's gonna go by pretty quickly, but truthfully, it's not all that difficult. So we're gonna start with our exterior elevations. So I'm gonna open up sheet A201. I'm gonna scroll up in my project browser until I see east, north, south, and west. Now, these titles here are going to be the default text used to label the drawing on the sheet. Okay, this is the label, this is the name of the sheet, but it's not the label for the drawing on the sheet. So when I start with my south elevation, that's what I'm going to start with, and I'm just going to drag and drop, and I'm going to place them right here on the sheet. There we go. Now when I zoom in, you notice right here it just says south. Now I can click on this and I can change this. Exterior elevation south. And when I change it here, it's going to change, or when I change it here in the sheet, it's going to change here in my project browser. Well, what if I just want to change the name of it here? So I'm just going to change them right here. It doesn't save me any time, it doesn't save me any keystrokes, but it's just one of those where I want to see it in advance. I don't like placing things and having to change it after the fact if I don't have to. East elevation. Oops, there's a space missing there. There we go. There we go. Okay. And a quick way to get to zoom extents in Revit is just like AutoCAD. If you double click your scroll wheel, you can do that, or you can type ZA. There is no command prompt in Revit, but Revit will recognize the keystrokes as zoom all. So we've placed the south elevation. I'm going to place the north elevation in here. And it's just a drag and drop. And you'll see, there it is. When I get to a point where my views are going to line up, I get that little helper alignment grid. And then I can select a view and use my arrow keys to nudge things around a little bit, just like that. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. All right, down in my project browser. Now you'll notice I've got little plus signs. I can expand out these views and it will show me what views exist on this sheet. So there's just more than one way to get to the information in the project. I'm going to look at sheet A202 and I'm going to place my east and west elevations on here. And I'm starting with the east one. East elevation, drag and drop. There we go. And the west elevation, drag and drop. Look at that, that's beautiful. Now, one of the things that is looking a little strange to me is the grid lines here are extending way far on one side of the elevation and they're kind of crowded on this other side. I want to modify that. And an easy way to enter a view when you're in the sheet in Revit is just like when we're working in AutoCAD. I can actually double click and enter this viewport. That's basically what it is I'm entering the view. Now, as these levels are actually three-dimensional objects, when I change them here, you're going to see them modified down in the opposite elevation as well. So I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to pull these level indications back a bit. But I'm going to come to this other side, and I want to pull him. I'm going to pull these out just a hair. And when I zoom out, I can look and see how those changes also impact what's happening in this other elevation view. That's actually looking pretty good, but that doesn't look like an elevation view to me. Something's definitely weird. Okay, I'm done making those changes. I'll just place my mouse over here and double click. Oh, there we go. Now things are looking happy. Now you'll notice that these views don't line up anymore, and the title line is actually kind of stretched out. It doesn't really fit the view anymore. Well, I can manually edit these. If I select my view, then I can grab a hold of the grips at the end of the view and I can manually edit these so that they line up. And that would be, I'm gonna have to zoom in so I can actually get the dot instead of the text. So I can make these edits manually, but then I'm gonna have to make this edit manually, and then I'm gonna have to move the views. So this is one of those rare cases where if I delete the views and then come back and place my east elevation on here again, you'll notice that my view title is really nicely proportioned compared to the view itself. So there we go. I mean, I can manually modify them, or I can delete them from the view and put them back on. And it seems a bit much just to get the view to look pretty, but sometimes we want the views to look pretty. So there we go. That's placing exterior elevations on these sheets. Let's move to the next category. I don't even know how long this thing has been running. We'll find out. We'll go to our ground floor. Okay, I want two building sections. I want one building section. This one you all should have already. And this building section goes through the back door and it goes through the stairs. But a building section, you're supposed to see that building section tag happen right here. So if I zoom in, you see that little round arrow right there. This is the cycle selection tool. And right now it says tail. So if I click on this a couple of times, I'll be able to cycle around so I can see what the indicator is. And for building sections, you really should see the section tag indicator on both sides of the section. Let me look at my floor plan here. Okay. And truthfully, what's happening is this blue dot indicates how the graphics are changing, or so how to show the graphics. So I can pull this up so it's roughly in line with the grid, with the head of the grid. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to grab the tail of the section. I'm going to pull it down, and obviously it's interfering with this elevation tag. So I'm just going to take this elevation tag and drag him over like this, just so we can see around him. Now, doing that did not modify my elevation, but this is just for readability of the section. Now, if I select my section line, you see this dash blue line that runs around the building like this? This represents the width of the section itself, the section cut, and how far into the distance the section is going to look. So that's looking pretty good, and it's even facing the direction that I want to go. And if I come over here to my properties, now I still have my building section highlighted. I want my building sections to be at a quarter inch, which I'm pretty sure it's at. Yep. And this, if I scroll down in my list, the view name, instead of calling it section 1, is going to be called the lateral section. Now I'm going to place another section cut. So I can either come up here to the top of my title block and click on section cut there, or I can come to view and click section. Either way, it's kind of the same thing. And I'm going to start here and work my way across to here. And I'm going to click on my little cycle tool so I can get that section head on both sides. And there's my section. Now it's still selected, so when I scroll down in my properties, I can come to my view name and call this longitudinal section. All right. So now, when I scroll down in my project browser, you can see I have a lateral section and a longitudinal section in my building section portion of my project browser. So now I need to scroll down in my project browser a little bit more, open my building section view, or my building section sheet, rather, and then I'm going to drag and drop to place my building sections. I'll start with my longitudinal section, left click, drag and drop. There's my longitudinal section. And then here's my lateral section. Now, one of the things that we need to change, well, a few things that we need to change. There we go. First of all, we need this to actually fit in the sheet if we can manage to do that. That's a little bit better. We need a little more work. I'm going to highlight just the view title because I can actually move the view title independently of the view. And I'm going to do that on both of these. And I'm just using my arrow keys to nudge these up a little bit closer to the view themselves. That's looking pretty good. Alrighty. Now, one of the things that I get to do is I'm going to highlight my lateral view, hold down my control key, hit longitudinal view, scroll up in my properties, display them on a detail level. It's blank because they're set differently in each view. So I'm going to change them both to fine because I need to see more detail that's there. We still want them to be 1/4 inch, and we'll click apply. Now, one of the things that we've been doing, and you may not have seen it or paid a lot of attention to it, if I zoom in, here's a building section cut. Now, this building section cut in our section, we actually place this building section in our floor plan, but it also shows up in section. And it's also automatically located the longitudinal section. This is drawing number 1 right there, and it's on sheet A301, and we're on sheet 301. So just this right here saves us a whole lot of time that we don't have to manually figure out what sheet and what view and what page and all that kind of stuff. Revit just handles it for us automatically. One of the best things ever about Revit. Okay, so that's getting our exterior elevations and our building sections placed on sheets. We're going to go into a little more detail in the next video, and we're going to tweak a few things based upon what we're actually seeing in these building sections and everything. So sit tight. We'll see you in the next video.